let me welcome Bob. Take it away, sir.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, Jim. This is a real treat because I have a lot of friends out there, and we miss some of the things that we used to do when we were living there. But why I'm here is since the COVID started taking away club meetings, I thought it was a perfect opportunity to fire up Zoom and bring you some of the real important things. And I call it the science of audio, but it covers much more what we're going to do tonight. And let's get right into it. I give you a little bit of history of myself. It started out in 1950. I was playing the accordion. And a couple of years later, my parents, and they were not wealthy people, they bought a B3 Hammond for me. And I started playing every day, learning how to do this. And 2 years later, I became a professional, started playing in a restaurant, making more money than my teachers. I was a sophomore. A year later, I ended up as the substitute organist at the Fox Theater in St. Louis, and my life really changed. Now, why I take time to tell you this is very important. That organ had not been played in 20 years. Stan Can, who was the organist there, he recruited me to be the substitute, but the real reason is he needed somebody to help him. Those pipes had to be tuned and voiced. There were over 3,000 of them from 1 inch to 32 feet. You see me standing by a rank of trumpets. Well, those trumpets had to be voiced. Tuning is not a big deal. Octaves is not a big deal. But voicing is. The one next to the next to the next to the next. They all had to have the same harmonic value. One couldn't be muffled, one couldn't be bright, that kind of thing. The voicer had to pick what he wanted. And it was all about listening. I learned to listen. Not a lot of people listen. They hear, but they don't go in and mentally dissect what they're hearing. And little did I know it was going to be the basis of 2 of my careers later on. And that same year, one of my high school chums became a ham, and I thought that'd be a pretty good thing to do. So we went to Walter Ash in St. Louis, and there's what we bought. My parents allowed me to buy this. Of course, I was making the money, but they didn't have to fork out for it, so to speak. That Harvey Wells, you see, that was my transmitter. It was a SX99 receiver, but that big box over there was an REME converter. I was on 6 meters. I was a technician for 17 years because if you were around, you know where I'm going with this. 6 meters from about 1955 for a good 12 years was better than 20 meters today. It was amazing, 24/7. I'd come home from the theater after playing midnight shows. It was open all night, and it was fascinating to me. I didn't need the lower frequencies. So I stayed a technician all these years. You see a little blue box right to the left of that Harvey Wells. You can just see the meter of it. I wish I still had it. I wish I had a better picture of it. I hadn't been into this hobby but a month, and I built that. It was a 2E26 that I built from a thing in QST. And I just loved building. It was really incredible to me. But that Harvey Wells is still with me. There it is, right there. I was on the air this morning on 3885, the AM group out here. And I got all kinds of other things, and they've all been with me these years. That's mostly all AM stuff. Well, on one night, I'm listening. I'd only been on the air couple 2-3 weeks. And I heard the most ridiculous signal I ever heard. What is this? The next night I come back, and he's still there, or there again. I go, who is this guy? And I didn't know much about the receiver, so I just started playing. And I hit the BFO, and all of a sudden, wow, voice. Hey, wait a minute, Heil. That's that single sideband stuff that I'm reading about in the magazines. But it was on 6 meters. Whoa, in 1956. And I started talking to him every night. I was 50 miles from him. He was in St. Louis. It was K0DGE, Larry Burroughs. And he was so thrilled that I started talking to him because nobody would answer him. They couldn't copy him. Well, I did. And I would help him. He'd be tuning things. Is this better? Is that whatever? I told him I'd come into St. Louis almost 3 or 4 times a week and play the organ. I said, I have some time. He said, would you come and see me? He gave me the address. I rolled up in front of KMOX radio. Larry Burroughs was the chief engineer at CBS. He took me under his arm. And it was a wonderful relationship. But that first night I said, hey, Larry, would you build me one of those single sideband transmitters? No, I can't do that. But I'm going to teach you how. And he did. We started off by buying a Central Electronics 10B. I built that as a kit, had plug-in coils, but we didn't put in the 14 meg coil. Larry taught me how to use a grid dip meter. We went over to Walter Ash, bought a Millen. I still have it. I still use it a lot. And we wound a 6-meter coil. But 14 and 50, I didn't get very far. We needed something else. So he taught me how to use a Greenlee punch and a raw chassis. And we built a 36 meg oscillator with a 6U8. 36 and 14, you're on 6 meters. The station went crazy. I was building stuff and buying all the new things. The Dream receiver NC300 came out. I had built a Heathkit, Seneca, on and on and on. But I was starting to get really interested in antennas. I had these loving parents allowed me to do just about anything. I had a guy down the road from Marissa. He was a Motorola dealer, K9SGD. And he and another guy locally, K9EBA, he was a contract guy, had booms and cranes. They put this up. It was a 110-foot roan with a 36-foot long Telerex on 6 meters and a pair of J-beams for 2 meters. But you'll notice that antenna is kind of strange looking. All of the elements are not horizontal, nor are they vertical. That was Telerex's new spiral array. And what they thought was going to happen, which did, your signals do not leave your antenna and stay there. They're changing polarity several times before they get to the listening receiver antenna. That's why we have fades. You know, you think, wow, that's a lot of little power bounce. No, he's changing polarities and we have nothing to do with that. It's just, that's what happens to our signals. And so this was a great boom to some of us that were really serious into 6 meters. That was a 110-foot roan on one side of the house. They allowed me to put up a 50-foot on the other side, and we put up a pair of Telerex 36-foot long 2 meters. But notice, one was horizontal and one was vertical. And I was building the phasing coils down in the shack so I could switch them and do all kinds of wonderful things. K9SGD gave me that TA33. You need to put this up because you're going to get a general. Well, no, I never did. And I just used it to listen. That was it. I was too involved. 1959, I bought a 6 and 2 Thunderbolt. And so I had 1.5 kilowatts on 6 meter sideband and 2 meter sideband. I got a call one day from Bob Drake of the Drake Company. Hey, are you the guy that's got that kilowatt on 6 meter sideband? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I would like to invite you to our meeting. We have an annual meeting and we call for papers. So we'd like for you to tell us how you did it because we checked with the ARRL and you're one of only 10 that we can name that has single sideband of that power on 6 meters. Okay, I didn't know that, but away we went. One of my friends who I met on 2 meters locally had a bonanza and he said, I've heard about that meeting. Let's go. And so we did. Went to the Biltmore Hotel, 1959. They had taken all the furniture out of one of the floors. They had the Collins room, the Hallicrafter room, the Drake room, the Mosley room, all these different manufacturers. You could go talk to Wes Shum, the guy that brought sideband to ham radio. All these wonderful people. They were celebrities to me because I'm just a little kid, but I read about them in the magazines a lot. Where was this? Of course, it was Dayton, Ohio. It was one of the first of the hamventions. In 64, they moved to Hera. While I was there, one of the manufacturers, J-Beam, was there from the UK, and he said, we're looking for somebody that could help us do a test on our antenna. Do you think you could do that? And so he sent over 128 element 2-meter J-Beam. And my parents, as I told you, they allowed me to do anything. They were fascinated by all the things I was doing. That's a 40-foot Roan. At that time, it was a Roan RG20. And we had one for a boom and one for the tower. There were a pair of prop pitch motors in it to rotate it and turn it to the moon if we needed, which I did some moon bounce. Just went crazy. I mean, I was a building fool, antennas, going nuts because I had a lot of time. I only played the organ 4 hours a night. And I built the first band switching transverter. That's the SB62 you see there. And that 20A, I had built that 20A. Now, I remember the other was a 10B. I still had it, but I built a straight 20A exciter. In fact, it's still with me. It's right there. And I built that so we could be on 20 meters, feed it into there. Bingo, we were on 6 or 2 meters. Well, CQ Magazine hired me to write a column called VHF Single Sideband. This is how special sideband was to VHF. We had our own place to gather. It was nothing like today. It was the mode for serious VHFers, the place where we experimenting. And it was wonderful because we'd share ideas about what you built, how did you get here, so on. And it's really kind of sad today. 6 meters is a wasteland. It's nothing but a contest band. What do you mean, Heil? What's your grid square? Hi. Wait a minute, come back here. Okay, what's your grid square? The minute they get your grid square, they're gone. Because my God, they might get another grid square. Oh my God, the world would unfold if they didn't get a bunch of grid squares. They have ruined 6 meters for any kind of conversation. I finally took all my 6 meter gear, got rid of it, because it's a wasteland. If you don't do that, you do FTA. So I mean, it's nothing like I started out. It was my college education, being able to build these things. My station just continued to grow and grow. At that same time, in 1959, I got a job at the Holiday Inn in St. Louis. It was the largest Holiday Inn in the chain. And I was there for 6 years. Played 4 hours a night. And in 1963, I built a pipe organ and installed it in this 4-star German restaurant in the Holiday Inn. The pipes were all behind glass, and it was something. We would have busloads of organ clubs from all over the U.S. come in and stay the weekend, and get to hear a pipe organ in a restaurant. So these were fascinating times. That restaurant was at the airport in St. Louis. It was 52 miles from Marissa, my home. And every night I would be on the road I'd be there from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock and from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. It took 1 hour. You'll notice I had a pair of Saturns on the back of there, a Saturn 6 and a Saturn 2, had all kinds of gear in it. But this is cool. Swan came out with their 120 transceiver, and they sent it to CQ Magazine to review it. And we did. But then I took it and I put it on 6 meters, and that was what was in my car. It was cool. Those are the kind of crazy things we did. But I'd been playing for 12, 13 years, 6 nights a week. So my hometown of Marissa, I opened a music shop. I could get a Hammond organ franchise. That's all. I hardly knew who the Beatles were. That sounds crazy with the rest of the story you're going to hear from me, but I wasn't paying attention to that type of music. It was all theater organ. And I started selling Hammond organs, but bands started coming to me with stuff to fix. Well, they were their guitar amps. Remember, this one kid came in and he said, "You fix stuff there?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He put the amplifier up. What did it have in it? A pair of 6L6s and a 5U4. Guess what? That's what the modulator is in the Harvey Wells. I knew it well. And all of a sudden, bands are coming from all over the Midwest because they found out there's a guy with a soldering iron. And I discovered in working with them and renting Hammond organs that the PAs in these hockey rinks and all that were terrible. So the Ham and me, we start building sound systems, big ones, and started renting them to the Kiel Auditorium and the Blues Hockey Arena. And these were people that would come from Nashville. The rock bands hadn't really started up yet, but these guys were always on tour. But one day I get a call from the Fox and said, "Hey, Heil, you still got that PA you had in there with one of the Nashville guys?" And I said, "I do." He said, "We're in big trouble." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "This band came in there tonight and they got in here and their PA system didn't come." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, one of their guys was supposed to have it here and he's in jail." I said, "How'd that happen?" He said, "I don't know. Talk to this guy." So I talked to Jerry Garcia. Jerry was very kind. "You have this big PA he's talking about?" I said, "Yes, sir. Got Macintosh amps." "You got Macintosh amps? Whoa." I didn't know no one else had done that at this time. We were way ahead of our time. And so we got it up to the Fox Theater and we did their concert. The story is, I bet you some of these know where I'm going with this. They were their sound man was on probation out of the state of California because Owsley was one of the innovators of LSD. And so he wasn't supposed to be out of the state. Well, they found out he did. So the DEA and the FBI, they went to their first show in New Orleans the night before. When the show was over, the band came on to St. Louis. Didn't have any cell phones. They just said, "We'll see you there at 4:00, Owsley." Well, Owsley, after he loaded the truck, the DEA and the FBI padlocked him in the truck and it's off to California and he's in jail. Well, when Jerry got there and the band that afternoon, they called back to the office and said, "What's happening?" "Well, I don't know." "Where is he?" "Well, he's in jail." Okay. And so that was a terrible thing to happen. Jerry and I, as I said, we became such good friends. And it was one of those things that over the years, he would come to Marissa, I'd help them with their things. And it was wonderful. And this is a nice piece of history. When they were out on tour, when did he pass away? In the 80s. He called me one day and he said, "Heil, what is this ye old music shop?" I said, "Well, it's the name of my store." He said, "Well, we can't pronounce all that stuff. Sometimes we don't think real straight." He said, "We're just going to call you Heil Sound. Is that okay?" And it's a fact. It's history. Jerry Garcia named Heil Sound. I know you said, "Well, your name's Heil." No, it was the old music shop. I didn't know where I was going with that. I was a music shop with a sound system. That started the whole thing because there was a journalist there that night that wrote the story about the whole sequence of how I got there, what I had. You go into Google and you put the night rock and roll sound was born, and you'll read the whole history of that. Well, after that, everybody was after us, all kinds of groups. And I was a straight man in a crazy world. And one of the things I didn't like is they were never on time. One of the guys that have a Volkswagen van with some of the things, another would have a pickup truck, and another would have a car. They wouldn't all get the gear there at the same time. Sometimes the show didn't even come off. Guess what? I had to pay my crew and we had a lot of money lost. I said, no more of that nonsense. So what I did, we were the first touring company. I leased a 40-foot semi. I bought a Greyhound bus, an old one. We put 11 beds in it, and we were touring. One of the groups, I always like to show you guys this one. This was one of the groups. We did their first tour, and this was their first show of that tour. Nobody guesses who they were because this is ZZ Top without beards. Yes, That's Billy Gibbons. And the sound system was very, very unorthodox because we had just made it out of plywood. We didn't even have time to cover things because we were building stuff and doing stuff. Oh, it worked great, but it didn't look very good. They didn't care. We're still friends. If I couldn't be friends with my clients, I didn't want to talk to them. And they knew this fact that I was a straight man. I've never tasted beer. I've never smoked cigarette. I've never done any kind of drugs. But they respected that because I had a soldering iron and I respected what they did, their artistry. I got another call one day and the guy says, "Hey, we need that PA out here in Boston tomorrow." I said, "That's not possible." "What do you mean it's not possible?" I said, "We're with Chaka Khan in Chicago and I can't just throw that away. I'm on contract with her." "Well, find somebody to do it. I need you. Tomorrow afternoon, you got to be here at 4 o'clock sound check." I said, "I can't do that. I have a semi and a bus." He said, "Well, you just get it here." I said, "Wait a minute. You got all these things you're talking about. Who are you?" He said, "We're the Who." I'm going, "Oh, okay. Hello." So I did get a friend of mine that I knew in Chicago that had a fairly decent PA, and he covered Chaka. We went out to the airport at Hera, and we leased a 747 and drove up the bus, the 40-foot semi, and away we went. We were with them for many years. Pete Townsend and I were really good friends because he was so technical. If any of you guys are Who fans, this was his studio up above his house in the Thames. He had called me. We took a year off between the 2 years of that first Who's Next tour and what he was planning next. He said, it's 1973. He says, "Right now, quad sound is big. Do you think you could make Roger's voice move around the hall?" And I said, "Well, yes, those are not in my vocabulary. I'm a ham." And so he said, "We want to do that," which we did. But one thing that I wanted to show you here, this is very cool. This is his studio above his home in the Thames. These are pictures you never find anywhere. That red chair he's leaning on is in front of a little $900 home organ, a Lowry Holiday. You see it in the next picture to the right. He's got it coupled to a synthesizer. What's he doing? Like, what is that? Well, that's what he did this on. Baba O'Reilly introduction. You remember it if you're any kind of Who fan. Well, again, timing was so right. I was so blessed. All these things just happened at the right time. We were building the first rock console. Most of the mixers out there were either little bitty guys for a PA system or they were for recording. And our sister company in England, IES, and we were working on a true modular system that could be used for rock and roll. But it was just the timing was right with Townsend. We could add that middle switching unit so we could switch and do quad. And that's how we did it. So these are all things that went through. There's so much more. I did a lot of festivals. And what's unique about our festivals, we had 3 big systems on the road. We had 35 people on the road with all these systems. We brought them together for festivals. You see all 3 of them, left, right, center. That made 2 stages in between. So one could be setting up and the other could be performing. That way the kids never got in trouble. There was always continuous music. Some of them didn't make it, but that's another story. I wrote the book. So many people ask me, "Hey, where did you learn all this?" Ham radio. No, I mean, what engineering school? Ham radio. It was really sad because there weren't any kind of manuals to help guys that wanted to get in the sound business. The Practical Guide for Concert Sound. I did it very simple. Had some little cartoon-like drawings that explained things. But I was so fortunate that all of this stuff happened, and it happened at the right time. And I was very, very blessed. One of the groups that we ended up doing their concert work was the James Gang. And we discovered we were hams. Of course, it was Joe Walsh in the late 60s. And we've been friends all these 50 plus years. But after that, he wanted to do a special solo band called Barnstorm. So now what do? So we put that band together in Marissa in our plant. We had 7,000 square foot plant. I actually built a rehearsal hall and stuff. We could build all this stuff for these bands we were working with. And he had done a thing. He recorded we call it the kicker of the album, the thing you always remember about. He did it in Nashville with two guitar players that were friends of his, Bill and Donnie West. They were in Pete Drake's studio recording Rocky Mountain Way. They had this little box that Pete had, a little 3-inch speaker, had a funnel on it, a little hose, and they could kind of like make a crazy wah sound thing. That's what he recorded Rocky Mountain on. Well, we're setting up for the live thing. He said, what are we going to do with this, Heil? How are we going to do that? Well, hey, it's two hams. We took a 100-watt driver, built a high-pass filter. We had a fiberglass shop, and we built the housing for it. Away we went. So now we could go live, and that was so important. You remember this? And that started the talk box movement. We had done Humble Pie from their beginning when they came over here. And they had a wonderful guitar player, second guitar player. His name was Peter Frampton. He was 17 years old, young Peter. His management pulled him out as a solo act. And they'd call me and said, look, you make him sound good because he's going to be a big star. Okay. Well, there was this little gal, Penny McCall. This is great rock and roll history. She had made up with one of Humble Pie's managers. And we had several of these managers and road crew from the different bands living in Marissa because of our facility. They could put all of their band stuff together and all that. Well, she hooked up with this manager and they wanted to get married because he needed to either get married or go back home. And so we had a rock and roll wedding in our home in Marissa. It was fun. And what happened there, Penny McCall, about a year later, she called me and she said, I'm with Peter Frampton and I need a Christmas present for him. Really? Don't send him a guitar. He got a lot of them. So I sent her a guitar box for Peter Frampton. You want to write the rest of his history? He's the only guy that can actually make it talk. Crazy times. But I got out of that whole business. I'd been in it so long. Punk rock was coming in, and a lot of my big bands were off the road. I got into the satellite business. We were putting in many satellite, thousands of them in Southern Illinois and Missouri, and I enjoyed that business. It was really great. But along the way, about 1991, I was going to the CES shows and so on. And the Hubbard family, they tapped me to do some experiments with them because they knew how much I was into the satellite business. And they sent me a little 2-foot dish. I put it up in my yard and they would send me test shots. It was DirecTV. They were doing the shots on it. In 1994, the CES show, I was on ABC television. I did ABC television as well as here in St. Louis and nationally from the floor of the CES show on ABC television. We let the world know all of this stuff you've been hearing about of satellite television, it's here. And so these were great times for me. Again, it was all ham radio. One day I get a call. This is where it all gets good, guys. I get a call from Paul Klipsch. Paul was the father of the folded horn, the father of the hi-fi movement. You the guy that's got that 10,000 watt PA? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I want to come and see this. And I'm going, oh my goodness. He called me and he's going to cut me off at the knees. He flew his Bonanza up to Marissa, Illinois. And no, not at all. He was a big, tall guy all day. Why did you do this? Or why did you do that? I was fascinated by some of the things I was doing because it was pretty unorthodox, but it was all pretty cool. And so he put me in his plane and we flew back to Hope, Arkansas that night. Spent the night, he and his wife, Belle, he had a speaker called the Klipsch Bell, if any of you are Klipsch fans. And it actually was amazing. It was like a homeless person meeting Jesus. I mean, to tell you, I learned so much from Paul Klipsch. I was blessed to become a friend and a student. He was teaching me all these things, but he was giving me notes, but I had to go to the library. Today, you guys and gals just punch it into Google, but we had to really dig to learn all of this. Well, what are you talking about, Heil? What he guided me to, because he knew that I didn't know any of this. And I'm pretty sure the majority of you don't either. But after tonight, it's going to get you thinking. Here's what we're talking about. The telephone system. Paul guided me to the studies of Bell Labs. That was referred to as the idea factory of the 1920s. Bell Labs was a consolidation of AT&T and Western Electric, which was the manufacturing arm of the Bell system. There were 4,000 scientists and engineers assigned to this newly created Bell Telephone Lab. Now listen up. They were fully dedicated to researching how our ears worked and what frequencies are most important to understand the spoken word. What is all of this about? Well, you're going to be in the middle of what happened here. Let me get all this lined up. I have a mixer. Yeah, come on here. And what we did here is I'm going to let you hear why the 4,000 scientists were so involved in our ears. Remember what I said earlier about listening. Here's the deal. They put up 2 wires from New Jersey to California. And every 50 miles, think about this now, every 50 miles in the 1920s, they had relay stations. It kept the frequency up, it kept the level up, and it was all analog flat. Everything was cool when they got to the West Coast. But when they turned on the telephone system, I mean, this was a big deal. Where would we be without the telephone system? They were ready to go, but when they turned it on, this is what they heard. It's like, what happened? What happened to our articulation? The F and the S and the P and the D, they all sound alike. The F and the S. What happened? So what they did is they put the 4,000 scientists on this project. 4,000 of them. The 2 lead scientists were Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson. They discovered that our ears are certainly flat. We have big holes in our hearing. You notice up at the top, it's almost flat. 110 dB. That's why kids like to listen to music loud, because they hear everything, cymbals, mid-range, vocals, bass. But down here where you're listening tonight, you're probably about 10 or 20 dB. And so in order to really do things, you had to have certain frequencies. Those scientists, you can argue it if you want, but there is no argument. Those scientists, Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson leading them, discovered something very important. The telephone system is going to be from 300 to 3,000, but they needed the 2.5 elevated a lot. Why? Because that was where all of the human speech articulation lies, at 2.5K. All I'm going to do here, I have a parametric equalizer in the mids. I'm going to remove only 2.5K. The bass, the top end at about 10K, they're going to stay there. You're going to hear the bass. You think I turned it? No, didn't touch anything. Here we go. When I take 2.5 out, listen to what happens to my audio. Whoa. Huh. Something had to be done. Very much so. Because it certainly couldn't be flat. That's what it was. But the scientists said, aha, we need to get that 2.5 up. And so when I bring 2.5 up, listen, I'm only turning the mid-range parametric gain to 2.5. And when I get it there, it's magic. The F and the S, the P and the B, they're all so significant, so easy to understand. Wow. I was just beyond myself. I had been off the air for about 12 years. Hadn't been on because I was on the road. And when I got back on the air, I had no idea what was facing me. What happened to my great Art Collins audio? It was terrible. What are we listening to? Well, I got my new Kenwood and I got my new Yates. What is that? You see, I was out of the mark. I didn't know. What are these things? Because all of them sounded like this. Well, I got my matching microphone. Yeah. Well, what I discovered later, the only matching was it was painted the same color. They don't build their microphones. They buy OEM stuff. They fooled you for years. We got the matching speaker. Yeah, that's the 3-inch speaker in a metal box. It's $150, driven by their 1-odd amp with 10% distortion. We're going to really get into that in a minute. I'm going, we got to do something. First of all, I've got to bring that 2.5 back up so you can understand what I'm saying. But there was no way. All these rigs had was mic gain. Wow, what are we going to do? So I did it. I developed this little box. I built myself an equalizer. It was the first equalizer ever for ham radio. I didn't know that. I've been out for all these years. But man, I put this thing on the air and everybody, what did you do to your audio? It's beautiful. I selected 2 filters, one at 160 hertz, one at 2K. And all you needed to do is either we would want to notch the low end and we want to increase the 2.5. You remember what the scientists told us about articulation. It's right here. So I wrote an article. I sent it to the ARRL. And I got a call back. And they said, whoa, this is going to be our lead article. And it's going to be the cover award. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't intend for this to be anything but a DIY, but oh my goodness, I put my phone number in there, and we were getting hundreds of calls. So my plant had been closed for 2 years. I sold all the sound stuff, and I was, no. So I called back some of my best solder gals, and we started building EQ200s, thousands of them. And it was the first equalizer. In 1999, I got a letter from Dr. Inouye Communications, ICOM. He had a picture of his station. It was, remember that great, it was an IC 781. It was the only one that had, the first one that had a screen in it. It was a real CRT tube. He had that. He had my gold line, and he had my equalizer. I was freaked out, I gotta tell you. He said, I'm thinking of new radio line, and I want to use equalizer. Well, you know, they're engineers. They could have done it, which they did, but he was just checking with me to make sure, after all my years of experiments with this thing, that they were the right frequencies, and they were. And so everything from the Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3, all the way through to the 7300, and oh my goodness, have you guys seen this? I hope some of you have it. You talk about an incredible box, is the 705. Whoa, this is a 7300. Yeah, all of the graphs, EQs, everything, plus D-star and all kinds of other things. Wonderful, runs from batteries. This thing is incredible. And this is what happened with us. Why did they send this to me a long time ago? Because they're not building it. They don't build their microphone. They don't build their headset. Build a headset for it because it had to be pretty special. And I did. So the HTH headset, which is also for handy talkies. Don't get me started. The microphones and headsets for handy talkies are absolute junk garbage. They're terrible. But we're stuck with them. Not anymore. And so now we're able to really make the 705 come alive. Well, that's how it happens. I mean, these guys, the head of these companies, they know that I can help them, and I did. 2 years after that first Pro 1 and Pro 2 thing, at Dayton, Dr. Hasagawa walks across the aisle to my booth. He says, I want to do it better. I said, well, what are you talking about? Equalization. Well, the only thing you would want to do would be you'd want to do parametric. Yeah, that'd be good. I said, not so fast. Why? I said, education. What do you mean education? I said, well, with a regular equalizer, I set the frequencies after years of playing. I come set the frequencies for you. All you have to do is plus or minus bass or treble. With parametric, you have not 2 controls. You ready for this? You have 9 buttons. And that is why, as I listen to the air, as I read things, a great percentage of Yaesu owners are using it in the default mode. How sad, because their manuals are terrible. They got all these graphs and charts. I don't even understand them, but it's very simple. Why didn't they teach us? Well, they didn't. So it was up to us to do it. And we did it on our website. It's very simple. First of all, there are 3 filters. 1, 2, 3. They each have 3 controls. That's 9 buttons you got to worry about. But it's not difficult. If I had a 10-year-old child, I could bring him in here or her in here, and in about 2 minutes, they would be able to handle a Yaesu parametric, and so will you. Here it is. It's so simple. You're going to set the first one at the frequency at 200. You're going to -3 the level, and you're going to do 2 octaves of bandwidth. You see, they're all the same: frequency, level, width. We're going to set the first one at 200. We're going to notch it because we want to roll off the low end a little bit, and 2 octaves. And that only means how wide is that audio filter. 2 octaves is fine. A lot of guys are, oh, how else you do? No, just to get you started, okay? What's the second filter? Where are you going to put it? There's something that happens all my life, especially in all of the arenas and stuff we did, something at 900 hertz. It's a boxy sound. Put your hands in your ears and do this, and you'll see what I mean. It's a real boxy sound. We want to get rid of that because it's there in your ham radio. So we're going to set the second one at 900. We're going to notch it about 3 dB, 2 octaves. Okay, where's the third filter? If you've been with me, you know where it's going. It's going to be 2.5K plus 8. Whoa, it's so darn simple. Frequency, level, width, frequency, level, width, frequency, level, width. Was that difficult? Heck no. All those other things that you can see in a kind of mushy in that picture, but don't worry about them. They're the column on the left, they're assignment numbers, 201, 202, but they're different for each radio, 102, 103, 401, that kind of thing. Who cares? We don't need it. You pay attention to those 3 filters: frequency, level, width, frequency, level, width, frequency, level, width. Was that difficult? No, it wasn't. But let me tell you, the first thing you do with any transmitter before you start playing with anything is you go find transmitter bandwidth, TBW. Now, if you're going to be rag chew, you're going to do it like 100 on the low end and 2.9 on the top end. You're going to do contesting? I don't need all that low end. I want to get rid of it. So it's going to be probably 500 to 2.9. And so you set the bandwidth. And with Yaesu, now listen up. They're the only one that does this. After you do all of this, there's a save button. And if you don't hit it, nothing's engaged. A lot of guys get in trouble with that. ICOM is really nice and simple. It's all of their rigs look similar to this: the bass, treble, and the bandwidth. So first thing, set that bandwidth for rag chew, 100 to 2900. You roll off some low end, -2, plus the treble to about +3. What happens if you're doing contesting? Well, I don't want any low end. I don't want anything in the low end. Why? We're going to go to that in a minute. Here we are. We're going to roll that baby off, 500 in the low, 2500 on the top. It's going to sound terrible. It's just awful. But wait a minute. If we did that, that would put a lot of our power up in that 2.5 region. And so when you take this bandwidth and you squeeze it down, the RF's got to go somewhere. It's going to go 2.5. So you're going to be really strong. Where? Right where the human articulation is golden. And that's what we want for DX and contesting. Yes, it's the worst thing ever. I designed the elements in 1984, and they were magnificent, of course. These guys, hundreds of thousands are out there, and we're still building it. I'll come back to that in just a minute. But all of the 7610, same thing. They have different graphics, especially the 7851. That's like the original graphics on the Pro 1 and 2. The other thing that he asked me to build was a microphone, and we did. This is the microphone. It does not work on Yaesu. It does not work on Kenwood. It only works on ICOM. We could get into that, but we don't have time to get into that. We'll come back some night and dig into all that kind of stuff. But that microphone is golden. It comes with the cable and a connector. You plug it in, and you've never had an ICOM sound any better. I absolutely guarantee you that. But the whole thing is about what you have to adjust your radio to. We have all of this in our website, Just go to heilsound.com, and under support, you'll find all things Icon, all things Yaesu, all things Kenwood, all things Ellicraft. There's 50 pages on just about all of it. And this is where you want to learn about your radio. Told you about that element. Well, in 1985, the California DX Club called me. They said, listen, we have been buying your elements and we're duct taping them onto some of our old headsets. And we don't want to do that. Why don't you build a headset for us, but put that element in the headset? And so we came up with the BM10. And here's the element. I'll let you hear it if you've never heard one of them. It's terrible sounding. I mean, terrible. Why would you ever want an element that sounded like this? Because 2.5K is golden. All the power you can muster is right there. And so now the DX guys love it. The contesters love it. No, it doesn't sound good. I'll tell you, I designed it. And I'll tell you, it's the worst sounding thing in the world. But you try to take one of those away from the DXers and you're going to get your hands cut off. Oh, golly. But it's just the science that I learned from those scientists and Paul Klipsch. And I'm just passing it on to you guys and gals because it is so important. And the other thing that we get into is the microphones that we build. Because of Joe Walsh, actually, in, was it 2005 through 10, we had a home out there. I was helping Joe. He was going through some times. We're sitting at his kitchen table one day. He said, you got to do something about my microphone. I said, why? He said, these things, these ball mics we're using, he said, we all use them. We got to stay right here. We can't move around. And he said, our instruments are terrible through them. So we put our heads together. 2 hams. Now, what we come up with was pretty amazing. First of all, I'd always wanted to do a large diaphragm. Shure tried it and failed. They never did come up with it. I know that for a fact because their chief engineer, Bob Schuline, came to me after we put this on the market and wanted to know, how'd you do that? Well, I don't know, we're not going to tell us your secrets there. But the deal with this is it has antenna theory. You go, what are you talking about? Joe said, when I come through there on a tour, and we get on 2 meters and you turn that big antenna around, I couldn't hear that. Do that to my microphone. Because when I had one on my guitar or something, I want to hear everybody else. And so we did. Build a large diaphragm, and it was Omni on the front. Check this out. As I move around, if you close your eyes, you wouldn't know I'm moving 180 degrees. Try that on other microphones and work. But now, what about the rear? It's 40 dB down. Here we go. When I talk in the back of it, it's gone. 40 down. Oh, it still works, but it's 40 down. How did you do that? I was an antenna freak all my life. And I did some phased arrays, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And being able to play with phasing, wow, that's what I did here. What I did is I took this big element. You see, all the other microphones, I don't care who they are, they have 4 little holes around here. 3, 6, 9. And that's the only entrance to get the rear signals into the bottom of that element. Well, that's stupid. So I said, nope, we're going to open the whole bottom of that sucker. Going to set it on a shock mount on top of what we call a signal collection tube. It's just a mount. Now, 360 degrees in the bottom of that element. And anything in the backside of the element is out of phase and it's gone, just as I showed you. Wow. we were really, really doing some heavy duty stuff. And what was so great is some of our other elements, they're now being used by so many people. And I'm very blessed by that, because our microphones, because of this, they're used in all these different markets. You guys know about the amateur radio, but we're one of the leading podcasters, commercial broadcast, voiceover artists, then the leading entertainment groups. I built that for the podcaster, and to me, that's the best ham radio mic. Oh, this thing is great, the 781. For the broadcasters, and you heard it a minute ago, it's a beautiful sounding microphone. Sirius Radio dumped all their RE20s. They bought 250 of our PR40s because of what I just proved to you. It's an amazing tool, and all kinds of artists are using these things. We're so blessed. And Carrie's been using the PR35 since her introduction to the market. But there again, it was all about ham radio. How did I know to do this? Well, phasing was a big deal in my life. I got a little deal you're never going to forget. If you didn't learn anything tonight, you are not going to believe this one. I'm going to unplug this. Two microphones. They're PR22s. Paul Rogers, a bad company. He asked me some years back to build him a microphone that didn't need any equalization. It had great articulation and nice low end. PR22. I use this on my ham radio most of the time. I love it because you don't have to equalize it much. Well, I have two microphones. They're identical. I have both of them. They're in a Y cord. One, no, we're not playing games here. Here's something that you might think about. If you had a station and you're running 500 watts and you're not making it through the pile up because you're using your matching microphone, no equalization, you don't care, you don't need all that crap. So you're going to go buy a kilowatt. You're going to take $2,000 of your wife's savings and you're going to buy a kilowatt. You have doubled your power. How many decibels do you have more? 3. Can't argue with this. I had some guys argue with this. Said, I tell you, if you're right, you and I are going to the Smithsonian. We're going to be rich. No, it's 3. You know how loud 3 dB is? Well, you're about to hear it. When I bring this other microphone up here, the meter on my console is going to move by 3 decibel. Here it comes. It's probably going to get pretty loud because you spent $2,000 for this. 1, 2, 3. What? Remember what I said about listening? It's a mental thing. Close your eyes, please do this. I'm going to take away $2,000 maybe. We're going to take away 3 dB. Let's see if you can hear it. 1, 2, 3. No. You know why? The scientists told me this when I found out about it. The human ear cannot detect a 3 dB level. Oh, if we were in a multi-million-dollar echo chamber, yeah, maybe. Well, we're not. None of us are. I can get you 10 or 15 dB of articulation just by proper equalization and the proper microphones. Think about it. Why I really did this, though, is I get this little plug. This little plug is kind of interesting. It's backwards. Pin 2 is hooked to 3 and 3 is hooked to 2. Big deal, Heil. Because when I put it together, works just like that one. So what's the big whoop? The big whoop is when I talk into this one, the diaphragm goes down. When I talk into this one, the diaphragm comes up. Doesn't sound any different. What happens when I take 2 signals out of phase? You ready for this? Watch your screen. Nothing. Nothing. They cancel. Nothing. Oh my gosh, how many hours do we have? It's my favorite subject. I'm telling you, once I got into this with Paul and building speakers, because if the speakers aren't right, not a phase, oh my God. Well, hey, First of all, I'll ask you this trivia question. Who brought single sideband to ham radio? Art Collins? No, he came in 6 years late. It was Wes Shum with Central Electronics in 1948. How did he delete the carrier? How did he get rid of the other sideband? When some idiot plies on top of your frequency and you hit your notch filter and he goes away, how's that work? How does your Yagi work? All of these things, noise canceling headset. How do all this stuff work? How did Dr. Yagi build this antenna? This is amazing, by the way. He didn't have computers modeling all that nonsense. He didn't hardly have anything but his mind and a calculator if he had that. So he took a boom and he put a driven element, resonant, and he started cutting directors, various lengths, and moving them forward and front. And all of a sudden, the magic spot, bingo, he had a field strength meter out there, and he figured out, I could get gain. If he built one longer, behind, whoa, he could get rejection, just like I showed you, out of phase. I was always mesmerized by phased array. And 2010, Sarah and I had some property down in Springfield, Missouri in the Ozarks. Her mother lived there for a while. We had 3.5 acres of that. That was my station. We'll check this installation of a 75-meter phased array antenna system consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directive from east to west, we use a delay line, a 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43 foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried. And just the top of it shows. It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do, mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after you done mowing. And I know that, probably, we get a dry day. I'm going to have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it because, if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it's looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now. And
the system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
yeah, well, I see the interview. This point on it, and that is their form of portal. So what that is, you want
I think, there we go. I think that most of you will agree. That was a pretty cool system. Costs little. You can do it in your backyard. Oh, what are you talking about? You only need 33 feet on 40 meters. And I'm telling you, phased array on 40 meters is killer. And I had the dipoles. That was no big deal. I went to the co-op and they gave me the telephone poles. They'll have like 80, 90 footers and they get rusted and all rotted out. And so they cut them off and put new ones in. They want to get rid of those old, gave them to me. We were glad. Had a farmer that had a drill, and another one had a crane. Bingo, we were going. But there's other ways to do it. But the whole thing about switching it, DX Engineering has a really cool switching network. You can use that. Or what I did, and I used a Meritron, and it works great. You only use one relay, that's all. But man, did that thing work. Oh, I can't tell you. And I was able to work the West Coast from Springfield, Missouri on AM on 75 meters with it. And so we were very blessed to be able to make all of that work. And it was all about phasing. And many of you have our headsets, you know about what we do with those. I mean, for 30 some years, we've been the leading headset manufacturer, and we still lead the pack. Years back, people started copying this thing, and that was all wrong. Said, no, we're going to get in this market. We're going to do this right. And we did. This is the epitome of all headsets. First of all, the speakers. I applied what I learned from Paul Klipsch in this. You're not going to find this with all the others that think they're in this business, race cars and come on, they're not audio people. I took the speaker after I found it. It wasn't some junk Korean crap like all the others. And I took it outside, did a free air cone, like I told you a while ago. It mounts right here, which means it's that far away from your ears. So if you have hearing aids, it's not going to feed back, because what makes it feed back is when you get the headset next to your ear. It won't do that. I really like all of the comments. I get a lot of guys calling me almost crying because I gave them their radio back, because they can now hear with their headphones and earpieces. I have a balance control, so you can balance these left to right. I have a jack, so if you have a monitor guy, you're the operator, he's a logger, no problem. You don't need Y cords, it's right here. And here's the biggie. We're the only headset company in the world, and we've been doing it for decades, that has phase reversal. Why in the world would you have phase reversal? Talk to the DXpedition guys and they'll tell you if you don't have one. What happens is you can be listening to a bunch of signals and you hear this little weaky guy back here. You reverse the phase and he comes up front. You can actually move signals around in your head acoustically, and it's all done with phasing. I'll give you something to ponder. I was very blessed and fortunate. I worked at the Skywalker Ranch with George Lucas. Tomlinson Holman, THX, was one of my buddies. In fact, I was his first boss. He's from the University of Illinois. Anyway, another story, another day. When I was out there, I would watch him do a scene. They had the 50-piece orchestra, left and right microphone banks. And wait a minute. When you have a DVD player, a VCR, a satellite receiver, any of these things, you have two connections. You have a red and a white audio. That's right, two, right? Left and right. How does that become 4 channels? Remember the picture that I showed you of Ray Dolby? I used Ray Dolby's system for the first time at CES back in '86, it was, I think. Here's the deal. They were recording this at Skywalker, but Harrison Ford was over there in a glass room with a microphone. And all of the sound effects were also brought in out of phase. So what the ProLogic did, listen to this signal. but there were 2 signals out of phase. And he brings all 4 of them together from 2 wires, all because of phasing. I could be here all night. It's my favorite subject. The antenna world is just, especially VHF stuff. But these are things that happened during my lifetime, and I share it with you because we all need to know this. I want to know, darn it, why isn't it in the handbooks? You get these big handbooks, God, you have to be an engineer to read them. Get out of here. Come on, talk to us like we need to be talked to. So that's why I do all of these things. One of the things that bugs me, and I never did when I was working for them, I could never get the manufacturers to talk to me about their receiver. Oh, our receiver, fine. I'm not talking about sensitivity, selectivity. I'm talking about audio. Oh, that's great. No, it's not. $15,000 to $400. They're 1 watt. Oh, I'll give you, maybe the big ones have 2 watts, but they're 10% distortion. I'm telling you, my ears go freako when I hear distortion, and yours should too. If you learn to listen, dissect what you hear, it drives me crazy. Well, what are we going to do about it? They won't do anything about it. Oh, we got a matching speaker. Yeah, you do. You take the same junky speaker and put it in a $2 box and charge $150. Oh, I'm sorry. You put your own name and paint it the same color. If you don't believe this, inspect what you have. You've been fooled for years. They didn't fool me. I did something about it. I want to know why. You tail your transmitter, but what about the receiver? We've learned from the 4,000 scientists, we need speech articulation with those signals. We got to lower the distortion. We have to lessen listener fatigue. We have to be able to tailor it. Why not do a parametric? Here's what the equalizers do. A regular 2-band shelving is fixed at some frequency. 160 on the low end's a nice place. You can roll it off or you can increase it, but you can't change the position of 160. The top end we put at 6K, but the mids is parametric, and you can move it from 400 to 4K. Notice the transmit bandwidth down at the bottom. You can move it throughout that bandwidth that you're listening to, if you had a way to do it. So after about 2 years of watching people bring stupid stuff to ham radio, all these junky speakers, DSP, Digi, Widgy, whatever's, nonsense. I want it to be analog, and we want it to be clean, and we want it to be very effective, and you're looking at it. The first thing I did was I built the speaker. The speaker is Paul Clips written all over it. I took the speaker outside in free air after I found it. It's really good. Look how big that speaker is. It's 5-inch, but this magnet's almost 4. And the transient response is unbelievable with it, and that's what we need in this thing. But you do the free air cone resonance, and then you treat the cabinet so that it has the same frequency, so that it does not have phase distortion, and it does not have any kind of phasing problems. And it works so well. So that speaker then gets driven by a 25 watt at 0.1%. We're talking hi-fi levels here. 0.1% is an amazing, amazing product. Has a 3.5-inch titanium tweeter. Lovely. So what do we do with the rest of it? This is what we do to it. First of all, I built 2 headphone amplifiers in it so that we can have a logger and an operator. Or, and this is getting huge play, you can have left side, right side. So if you have a hearing imbalance, It's beautiful. I also have a record out. This is how I made these recordings that you're going to hear in a second. I did that by plugging that, you don't need a bunch of Y cords, into my computer, and everything was great. And then the equalizer. Here we go. This is how you hear him. I'm only playing with the mid-range.
Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo, EISLD.
Here's the way you hear him.
For Sierra, Sierra, Germany, thank you, from Ireland. And it's in India, Alpha Mike, over.
That's the way you hear him.
Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo, EISLD.
Do I have to say any more? No. There's no argument about this. And we're just so thrilled that so many guys have figured it out that, whoa, I need this. We all need this. Because we're all getting older. Our hearing is starting to be on the lame side. But we don't have to lose our ham radio because of it. And there's nothing like it. And so I'm very, very blessed that I have all of these people teach me things. Paul Klitsch, Ray Dolby, all these wonderful people that through the years that I've worked with that came into my life. I didn't search them. And that's the blessing to me. Why did they come to me? They just wanted to know, what was this crazy guy with a soldering iron doing? Well, this crazy guy was a ham. And all of the stuff you've heard, read about, whatever tonight, is because of ham radio. That's why I'm here. This is a fantastic hobby, and I don't want to see it go away. I don't want to see it, and we just need to dig further and enjoy it more. I should come back one night and we should get into this project if you didn't know about it. The Pine Board Project. It took me a year to do this on the Ham Nation show. We have several thousand. You're going to say, how did you know that, Heil? I know that because of Antique Electric Supply. They put the parts kits together, and I know how many have sold. There it is. This is a 75 and a 40 meter AM transmitter, 5 watts. We built the power supply. We built the equalizer for it. There it is up there. Yeah, you can see it. That's the whole thing up there. Now, I even took it a step further on my own. It is band switching 160, 75, and 40 meters, AM 5 watts with an equalizer, a relay for the receiver. This is the kind of stuff I love doing. You say, well, it's so complicated. There's a mic preamp right there. Got about 6 parts. Why can't you build that? Of course you can. And that's where the fun is. That's why I do it. One last thing I'm going to leave you with is one of the things that just discourages everything I do is wire and cable. Oh my gosh. It's junk. You go look at your microphone, your matching microphone, and you're going to see a connector that looks like this. Got a little bitty 1/4-inch ring. You almost have to have needle nose on it. And they use heat shrink or something to make up the space because they don't build it right. They build it and you're out of luck if yours doesn't match. I said, forget that. I went to Foster, the people that own the patent, and we build our own. Notice how big that thing is. The ring is 1/2 inch or more, but the cable clamp, there's 2 of them. We molded it for the small side. That's for the push to talk line that comes out for foot switching. But the microphone cable, when you clamp that down, you can pull your car with that thing because I designed my own wire. The wire in all of these microphones that come from the factories is 26 gauge. It's terrible junk. This shield is awful. You try to spread it apart and you end up with about 3 little strands. This is 100% silver braid. It solders beautifully. And that is 18 gauge wire, not 26. The broadcasters love this. Most of our microphones are balanced line. That's another story for another day too, because your transmitters, the new ones, because I designed the front ends of most of them, they're balanced, but the manufacturers don't use it. But I know how to secretly do it. They still wired unbalanced. You don't want to do that. You can get rid of a lot of RFI, and there's the cable to do it with. Now notice the blue and the red? That's DC for push to talk. All other cables, it's inside the shield. So you got this very sensitive AC audio and this ridiculous DC RFI like crazy. I've fixed more RFI problems by changing it to our wire. If you don't have a copy of this, no matter how long you've been in the hobby, you really should get a hold of it. And if you have any classes, we're having clubs buy these by the cases. They give them to their new students. It's something that everyone can read and learn. It's not one of these ridiculous 10-inch thick things that you have to be a scientist. No. And I'm really proud of it because it's got all these things from Paul Klipsch, things from Larry Burroughs. I didn't write it, I compiled it. Last but not least, ham radio is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Heil Sound is the only manufacturer in the Hall of Fame. And when they wrote that panel behind me, they sat me down and said, well, where did you get your schooling? Where'd you learn all this? I said, ham radio. They said, no. Where did no. Amateur radio. I mean, that's what you want to put in here. I said, absolutely. So I guess amateur radio is in the Hall of Fame. What you see behind is a mixer I built for ZZ Top. The first talk box is signed by Joe and Peter and stuff like that. And a couple of years ago, I received a PhD, an honorary PhD for music and technology from Mizzou. All of this from a kid that hardly made it through high school and learned everything from ham radio. And I learn every day, and I really mean this. I'm always working on something, piddling and fiddling. But, you know, it started there where I learned to listen. And then it got into the old Harvey Wells, all of those things you see over there. My life has been consumed, thank God, by ham radio. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you learned something. I hope it wasn't boring. I hope you have some questions. Always know you can call me or write me. Just send an email to me. We'll get on Skype. I do this. Sometimes I'm on Skype all day with different guys and gals. I don't mind it. We need to share this. And you're not going to get it anywhere else. You're going to get somebody selling you a product. Yeah, you'll buy it. You know, I'm not after that. I'm after helping you. That's the main deal. And if you have a problem, maybe we can fix it together. So don't be shy. Any questions?
Actually, Bob, I'd like to jump in first. The demo you did of the phase cancellation, I've seen before, and it's good, except that you have a third mic on in your studio, so the noise cancellation or the microphone phase cancellation demo came off as not being a demo. So could you turn off the wild mic in your shack or your studio there and redo that? Because I think people would better understand what you're referring to.
Well, we can do that. Thanks for telling me. I never had that. As I say, I do lots of these. Let me unplug this guy. And we'll plug this guy in. And then we'll plug this guy in.
So I'm curious if there's a mic on the webcam or something that's near the camera. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, because there was still a mic on when you had both mics unplugged.
Is there a mic now?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Whoa, I wonder where that's coming from, because all of these are shredded.
Yep.
It's the mystery mic.
So
You're wired for sound.
Yeah, yeah. Because there are no others here. That's really strange.
Somewhere there is one.
Or it's not on your computer, is it?
No.
Does your mic?
No, but if I put these together, if I do this and the level's high,
we're still hearing another mic.
Yeah, there's another, yeah.
Where there's a Heil, there's a Mike.
I don't know where that would be coming from. I do these things all the time, and I'll have to check that out because it never happened. So something popped somewhere.
Well, there's the one thing I'll bring up, Bob, in Zoom, and this caught me the first time I started using Zoom, is in the little toolbar at the bottom between the mic and the video is a little caret menu that will allow you to select your input and your output. So you may not have Zoom selected to the input that you expect.
Yeah, but let's see.
Yeah, that has got me at times.
Yeah, I got burned by that when I first started using it. You know, you think that Zoom is tracking the audio that you think, and it's not.
Well, especially if you have a lot of different input potential sources.
Is it still open? You still
Yes,
hearing it?
is.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
What about over here? That's still there?
Yes.
Yep.
I think you got it.
Okay, we don't hear anything now if you're talking, Bob.
Oh, all's quiet.
Yeah, all's quiet. We don't hear anything.
Oh, now we're in trouble.
Yeah. That's crazy.
There
Hey, you're back
we
now.
have it back.
You're back now.
Yeah, is it still there?
Yes.
Yes.
We have voice.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to check this because it hadn't done that. Something's weird and I haven't changed anything. So
We
these
believe
things,
so.
these things are not canceling, huh?
No, they're not.
So how many hams does it take to change
Yeah.
a microphone?
Right. Right.
Looks like 55 tonight.
Yours sounded pretty nice, Dave.
Oh, I'm just using the built-in one on the computer because my AirPods ran out of battery juice. But I have a question, and I'll queue up at the appropriate way.
Wow. Oh, these are not canceling for you?
No, they're not. We can still hear you loud and clear.
I sure don't know where that's coming from. I really
All
don't.
right. Well,
No,
trust me that I've seen the demo before and it does cancel.
yeah, absolutely. I'll go check that out.
Okay.
We'll have to have you back. That's all.
There are
Bob,
so
you-
many things to talk about. But there. Somebody
So,
have a
Bob, you
question for
mentioned
me?
Early on in your talk that you had a log periodic antenna from a professor, I think it was. You were doing some very early radio antenna work. And so it was very early in the story, and you mentioned a very long log periodic, and you said how many elements it was on 2 meters?
No, that was, no. That was a 2-meter array from J-beam. It was 128 elements. That
On
wasn't,
one boom, it was one mast, or I mean, was
yeah, but the boom was a 40-foot Roan tower.
Oh. I was trying to figure out what does that look like?
Yeah. It was,
Huge.
they were 8/8 J-beams, if you remember that antenna, which was a fantastic antenna. And they sent it over here. We did a lot of tests with that company. And we were able to do some things that moon bounce at that time. That was pretty strange to do moon bounce in those days. And
that was the early pioneers. That was the.
Do you know who Bob Cooper was?
Yes, I do.
Well, Bob Cooper and I used to do moon bounce in 1962. He was in Oklahoma City. I was in Marissa, Illinois. And we did it with that little guy right there.
He held some of the early records, right? I mean, that was him.
And Coop and I were friends. He would hold, well, first of all, after 1962, 63, I took all this down and I hadn't talked to him in a long time. until one night in 1977, maybe, I'm watching the Tom Schneider show. Remember him? Late night.
Yes, Tom Schneider, late night.
And he had a satellite dish. And I'm going, what? Wait a minute. What is this? And he introduced Bob Cooper. I'm going, what is going on? And he was telling about the fact that he was able to receive satellite television. And so I still had contact information. He was holding classes in his backyard in Oklahoma City on Saturdays. And so I went down there and he taught us how to take a Folger can and build an LNA, go to the surplus stores and buy a dish. And the next thing you know, we were receiving HBO. Well, that was a big deal. I became a satellite dealer quickly, and we put in thousands of those things because back in Southern Illinois and Southern Missouri, those people didn't have television. And when I say that, I'll be, oh, you're just lying. They were 100 and some miles from TV stations. And in those days, you want to put up a 100-foot tower maybe, but people didn't want to do that. Well, satellite television was the deal. And so Bob and I are good friends, but he built this video cipher so you could unscramble the pictures, and the FBI and the DEA and everybody else, they ran him out of the country, and he can't come back into the country because they'll arrest him. He's in the Caicos Island. What did Bob Cooper do? He moved to the Caicos and built a cable system. Sure, this is a true story. And he's still out there. But man, did we do a lot of stuff in the satellite industry. It was so much fun. There's a whole bunch of hams and TV dealers and stuff. We all shared things. It was great.
So Bob, if I could ask you a question, I'm talking to a guy who knows people I've only heard of. And one of those folks, I wonder if you've ever met, was a designer, James Strickland, in Fort Lauderdale in the 70s, who designed these wild electrostatic speakers that I actually got from Joel and rebuilt the electronics. And they use tubes driven through capacitors, 5,000 volt power supply. Have you ever run into this guy, James Strickland?
No, I haven't heard that name.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for listening to my question. I'm an electrostatic nut. You can see my picture. I've got them on right now. These Japanese electrostatic headphones here.
Good stuff.
Question to Mr. Heil from San Jose, Professor Heil. I have uncovered some information about a gentleman. I don't know if you ever came into contact with Rudy Van Gelder, the engineer from Inglewood Cliffs, New Jersey. He was an sound engineer, much as you are. Whiskey 2 Tango Mike Delta. And he began an interest in amateur radio, much as you did, and went on to become a world famous recording engineer at his studios in Hackensack, New Jersey, and Inglewood Cliffs, New Jersey. Whiskey 2 Tango Mike Delta. Rudy Van Gelder. And I have a post about this in our current newsletter. It's a very isolated subject. But
no, I wasn't much into the recording side of things at all.
I see. Thank you very much. I enjoyed your presentation. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you. There's so much more.
Hey, Bob, I still got your sheriff's badge here.
Hey, look at that.
Dayton.
Yeah. That's when the PR-40 came out, and the reason that there was a new sheriff in town. Goodbye, Electro Voice.
Hey, I got this microphone, Bob, that from a guy, and there's 2 wires hanging there, no cartridge. I called the factory, and they said we don't send cartridges out.
No, the problem is we never know where they're going to go. And yet a lot of people say, why don't you do that? Especially that one. That's an ICM. The problem is guys will put them in some junky thing because the housing has a lot to do with how it sounds. And I just don't want it to be thrown about. That's for sure.
Okay.
Would you buy that from eBay or something?
No, I got it from Ham that I got a bunch of other radio stuff from.
Oh, I'll be darned. Somebody playing games with you, huh?
No, it was all legit. But I don't know what he used the cartridge for.
Yeah. Well, it's a great element. I mean, it's, electrodes, there's a lot of electrodes, but we had to do a very special one for ICOM.
Yeah, I was going to use it on my 7610. What do you think?
Yeah, that's it, baby. Let me tell you.
The lady I talked to said it would cost as much for me to get the cartridge with you guys doing it as it would if you sent me the cartridge. So just send her the microphone, she said.
Yeah, what's your call? AF0XX?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Is that a 781, Frank? What is that one?
No, it's an ICM.
Oh, it's an ICM. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
the 781.
Frank, I'll send you an email, so stand by.
Thank you, sir.
It'll be tomorrow, but stand by.
Hey, Bob, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah, Andy, KR6DD. On my left here is a stereo system I bought back in 1970 something, and it's got six sliders, plus or minus 10 dB at on different frequencies. So you didn't want to go any further with a number of degrees of control for your equalizer?
I don't know what it is.
Well, it
Well,
sounds
this-
like he's got a third octave equalizer or something of that nature
I've
on
got
his
an
home stereo
equalizer
system.
here.
Oh, no.
This old stereo has six sliders plus or minus 10 dB over the audio range.
Yeah.
That's an equalizer. So I was just wondering if there would be any advantage to go to more degrees of freedom
No,
in ham radio equalization.
no. No, the problem when you got equalizers that I got, I'll just go buy me one of those Behringsers. Well, it's for music, and they'll have like 50 hertz and 12,000 hertz, and very little in the middle. It's not made for frequencies we need. We're only 3K wide, so we can't have very many things to adjust. They have to be very precise. So
Okay.
any kind of what I call consumer electronics do not work. And then it's going to be an RFI nightmare because they're not bypassed for any kind of RF. So that's not a good thing.
One other question. That antenna where the elements changed, rotated as you went down a boom, I've never seen one anywhere. Are they still being made and used?
No, that was Telerex, and they went out of business, unfortunately. It was a great company. Oh, they were something. And, yeah, the Telerex spiral array really was interesting in those years I had it working.
Hey, Bob, I got a question for you. Actually, one guy, your good friend, Art, W6LBB, rest in peace. Every time I go 160 meters with him, he always tells me to change my equalizer on my transmit. And man, he was a very sensitive person. If you went up one or two KC, he could tell the difference. And I really appreciate his helpness on that.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a tough thing because you shouldn't have to do it. If he had one of those guys, then he can make you sound the way he wants.
Right. Well, the thing about it, he had I've been to his house a couple of times in Pahrump, and he just had to set up there. He'll tell everybody, change the equalizer, do this. And he was the most helpful person on ham radio. No like him now today.
That's great.
Hey, Bob, I used to appreciate the organist until I got a job as a drummer sitting in front of a big Leslie.
This instrument has 10 speakers and 2 subwoofers. It's a digital Wurlitzer. What they did is Lynn Larson, he's one of the prolific concert organists today. And he went around the country because he knew where the best brass trumpets were, the best tibias, the best strings, the best this and that. There's 24 ranks here, 24 different organs in here. They sampled those. And this is a sampled Wurlitzer, right down to the fact that a couple of them had air leaks and they let them there because it's part of the sound. It is an amazing sound. That's a Wurlitzer 3-manual, 24 rank console. Alan Organ built this, and it's mind boggling. I come in here to play every day. I play, I'll go in for an hour. I'm here for 2 or 3 hours sometimes. It's just unbelievable how good.
Did you ever do anything with like any of Ray Kurzweil's stuff?
Do what?
Did you ever do anything with like Ray Kurzweil's?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
I'm just curious.
Didn't do that one.
What an amazing talk, Bob. And isn't it incredible how one thing in your life leads to another, which leads to another? I just love the way you tell that story. Thank you so much.
Well, there's so much more to it. And I mean, I go on, I feel bad that they have to last this long, but when some of the guys, you can understand some of this, but a huge part of my life is when I sold the sound system company and got into home theater. We were the guru for home theater because we were building $200,000 and $300,000 rooms, and
wow,
it was just unbelievable some of the things that we did in those days, and people had the money to pay for it. And yeah, they were, some of them pretty wealthy people, but that was part of their entertainment stuff. And it all started with the satellite business. Because like, why should we be listening to a little 2-inch speaker in a television? I said, let's do something different. And so we would do some really cool things. And next thing you know, we were going nuts. And I got into designing homes with the designers, and it was wonderful. Here, I'll show you a couple of things. This was a couple of different pictures of what I was doing with one of them. There's 2 different rooms there, but this one, that was really cool. I had real theater seats, and this one was a $300,000 room. Had a high-def projector with laser disc. This was in 1987. Now think about that. High definition and just gorgeous stuff. And there's Tommy Holman at THX. I was taken at Skywalker, and Ray Dolby just became a great friend. I got into designing rooms too. Lady came to me one day and said, hey, can you do something with my old house? I said, sure we can. No, it's not in my vocabulary. That back there in that curtain drawn back, why, that was that other crazy room that you saw. And another guy brought me this. What do you do with that? Well, you do that with it. And so it was just on and on and on. And I was blessed, I have to tell you. Everything happened at the right time. But like a couple of my friends told me, but said, you were able to do something where you took it and ran, and because of ham radio, I was able to do a lot of things with it. That was the important thing.
Yeah, but I was the kid who sat, a foot away from the TV and looked up at the screen. So when I grew up, I got one of the screens that came down from the ceiling and a projector and big electrostatic speakers and all of that stuff.
There you go.
That's great. Going crazy. But thank you. What a pleasure to get a chance to meet you this way. So thanks so much for coming to our club.
Hey, Bob, at the DX convention in Visalia a few years ago, you were headed over to one of the churches to play the organ. Did you get there?
That wasn't a church. That was the Fox Theater. They had a 4-manual Wurlitzer there.
Oh, okay.
It was fantastic, and I'm really sad that they're not using it any longer. There was a guy, Pete played it all the time. He was 80 something then, and I still can stay in touch with him. But the theater, they're closed,
Yeah.
and they don't know if it's coming back. And a lady, this is unbelievable, that lived in Malibu. The size of homes in a Malibu. She had this 4-manual Wurlitzer installed in her house and would have George Wright and all these famous people come and play it. Well, she donated it to the Fox in Visalia, and that's the organist there. Yeah, we did a concert and did a recording of it. That was cool. Love to do it again, but I doubt if it'll ever happen again.
By chance, did you ever play at the Stamford Theater they've got one of those, I don't know what kind of organ it is, but it's a pretty big organ. And of course, what they do is that organ gets the actual player elevates, and then before the show starts, he actually sinks into the floor.
Yeah, they all did that.
Okay.
Yeah, the Fox did that too.
Yeah.
And the reason they did it, the organs were built for silent films.
Yes.
And the organ would come up in the middle of the screen for the silent film. For the concert. But when the film came on, they had to lower it out of the screen. And that's why they did it.
So Bob, you've probably seen the organ at the Pipe Stop Pizza Parlor in Mesa, Arizona.
Certainly did. That Lynn Larson that designed my instrument here, he was the house organist there for many years, and he actually was one of the guys that helped install that. That is a fantastic organ.
It is.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah. And there's a good one at the Nethercutt Museum in Sylmar, California as well.
It's true. Played that one too. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, good for you.
Good. Yeah.
Bob, I got something. I'm going to leave you with a trivia thing, a comment. What is common with Ray Dolby and Norse, who started Intel Corporation? I wonder if you know if there's a common denominator there.
I missed part of that. It's Ray Dolby and what?
The guy who started Intel Corporation. There's a common denominator there. I wonder if you know.
No, I don't know.
They both went to the same high school that I went to, Sequoia High School in Redwood City, California, home of Ampex Corporation.
Yeah. Ampex, what a great end. And here's the deal. If we didn't have ham radio, you wouldn't have Ampex. Did you know that?
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So many things.
Bob, is that an ICOM 706 sitting up behind your head?
Mm-hmm. That was a prototype. I had that a year before it was brought out because every 706 sold, the first 200 had one of my Traveler headsets packaged with it. But I had that before that because they wanted me to build a headset that would work on it. And it still works great. I had it on the air here a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it's really good. Works super.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody know what this is? Nobody guesses it. That's a Mosley CM1. It's a great AM receiver.
Oh.
And I bought that from, I didn't buy that one. I bought that one. And I use it in the mornings. That's my AM receiver over there. It's wonderful. I bought it from Carl Mosley because the organ that I was playing across the street at the Holiday Inn those 6 years was right across the street from Mosley. And I'd go in early once a month or so and go see what they were doing over there. And one year in 62, they were building receivers. I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I bought this from a guy and we're building it. They built a couple hundred. And I could do you a whole hour about this. The guy that designed it, I found out, about 10 years ago, I started really using that one that I bought from him. And I knew that Mosley didn't design it. And I went on a search to find out who did it. And it was John Clemens. Found out he lived in St. Louis still. He was 87 or so when I met up with him. And I would visit him about 3 or 4 times a year. And he just died here last year. I was so sad. I'd go, he'd tell stories that were amazing. Those are the kind of people I love. Like my friend down in South Carolina, that he's a Harvey Wells fan. And we get into that stuff. And the oldest ham, that was another one, W4KKP. I have a half-hour video. If you guys ever want a program, I'll give you a program. This is a guy that got selected by a general during the war. He said, I want to send you to a place. It's going to be very secretive. I want you to go there and build a transmitter that when we win the island, I can pick up a mic and talk to China, San Francisco, and the Pentagon all at the same time. You can't test it. We can't turn it on because I don't want the Japs to find out where it is. He did it and it worked. And the story is unbelievable. I sat with him for a half hour, did a video. It's amazing. You ever want that? Let me know. I sent it to you. It's really good. And Cliff Cahart, W4KKP. He died this past year. He was vibrant, 106. He died from COVID.
Oh, man.
No, we
Oh,
gotta,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
we gotta have that program.
Yes, it is wonderful. It is.
Hey, Bob, I'd like to share a story with you. You're probably familiar with this little gem of a headset that
Yes, I
you make
am.
for, and so I have to tell you, I'm in the television business. You probably don't know what's going on behind me here, but I do this kind of stuff for a living. Guess what I use when I'm in the rack room? I'm using this headset because the microphone, I can put it right up to my lips and everybody hears me clearly, but I'm standing in front of a whole bunch of computers they have those little small diameter fans and they're like jet engines. It's really loud. This is the only thing that works inside the server room. It's the only thing. I've seen other people do earbuds, just four-bot earbuds, but the microphone picks up so much background, it's too much to listen to. But when I do this, it reduces the fatigue of people that I'm talking with on my business calls. So hats off to Heil for a great microphone element, specifically in loud noise areas.
There
Pro
again.
7, Joe? Joe, is that a Pro 7 or?
Yeah, Pro 7. They call their companies trying to copy that. They do race cars and airplane. No, they don't know anything about audio. It's really sad. So I said, we're going to do something about it. And I did.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Bob, one thing you said will really stick with me, and I think you'll appreciate this. I found myself in one of the newest fangled high-tech computer industries, which is quantum computing. And I'll give you one guess how a quantum computer works.
I'm not sure.
Phasing.
Phasing.
How did we know?
How do we know? It's there's so much about phasing and people don't realize how it touches our lives every day. Here's how I like to end this. It'll be your choice. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to fire at the organ and you can play me out. You can turn me off or whatever, but when I get over there, but 7-3 to everybody.
Clean the organ. Here, missing it. Give me the stuff your mom would know.
you.